I'm Kelly Hall. We've been spending the last couple of days together, but just to introduce myself professionally, I have heard from a lot of other storytellers that the best way to tell a story is tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. But then I'm also a big fan of Simon Sinek, and he would say to start with why. So maybe I'll try to do both. In the next 40 minutes of your life, I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking to you about Niaga. In my whole career, that was a very special experience because we were enabling the circular economy, but we also did it with a self-directed structure. And I think that those new ways of working are getting a lot of attention. So I just wanted to share a little bit of the learnings there in case that could ever be helpful to you. And then I'm going to spend a little bit. We took a picture, but we didn't have everybody here, so I'm going to have to try again.
We're taking so much to lobby. We didn't know it was
It's okay. Okay, so just to back up, like then what I'm going to try to cover over the next 40 minutes is a little bit of insight into how we were working at Niaga, because the self-directed structure that we used was pretty fascinating and often references the future of work. That's, I think, how I probably found my way to the Halcyon group, was the keynotes I've done in that area. But I also want to spend more of my time talking to you about some of the things I've learned in my own adventure, because I'm living with a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, 2 years. And I think a lot of the reason I got disease was because of my life on the hamster wheel and how I was dealing with all of the fear and anxiety and pressure and stress and everything. And I've made major changes in my life since then. And so just want to walk you through some of those learnings.
So can we just say you look amazing?
Thank you. This was from my 50th birthday party, which happened in August. So I believe in living large, and that probably sounds like a cocky American thing to say, but as I explain what living large means to me, maybe it will seem a little softer and a little bit more feminine. So living large, what is that? For me, it is really going after every source of disease in my life. And that means I'm trying to get rid of judgment, fear, anxiety, pressure, stress, imbalance, intolerance, self-loathing, disrespect, shame, hate. I don't want these energies in my life, but I also don't want them in the world. And what do I want? How do I want to live my life? I want to live my life from a place of love, from a place of abundance, from a place of equality and ease, from a place of gratitude and generosity. And the more that I really start every day grounding myself in who I want to be and how I want to be in the world, the more that it sort of brings people into my life that want the same things, and it creates less space for the other things that I had found normal for most of my life. So before we dig in, I just want to share a couple places of my intention. Can you turn that so I can see your copy? So I'm not here to give you advice. You're all perfectly successful, capable, amazing women. But I'm grateful for the women whose stories I have read that have given me hope, that have given me purpose. Like, it's amazing that people who have done really hard things or overcome things, when they take the time to share their story, oh, if you could do that, I could do that too. And it's just like, I'm not exactly sure which parts of my story are helpful to you or what will resonate with you. But to the extent that you do feel something familiar, I would like to know how I connected, because I will help you anytime you need help, but I also sometimes need help myself. And last, at Niaga, the nicest compliment I got at the end of my 5.5 years there was, a lot of places you find you're in the company of people who will give you a hand. That means that when you fall down, they'll help you up. But it's not so often that you find the company of people who have a hand on your back, which means that all the time you're supported and leaning forward and staying up and doing those things, not just when there's an incident, but all the time. So having friends and family and community that has their hands on each other's backs is a very, very cool place to be. And so I want to offer my hand to you, but I'll also ask for yours in return. So we've all been through a lot of chaos, guys. Ladies, we're in the middle of a broken planet, and the climate change, the circular economy, everything, it's massively important. A lot of people don't realize there's only like 60 years worth of oil left in the ground. we've become dependent on all these oil-based things for thousands of years, but we're consuming it at such a rate. You don't know how many things are going to be gone in 100 years. That's not very much time. And beyond the 2-degree change that we're trying to bring it into, we're just massively over consuming and using things that aren't here. We all just went through COVID and the implications that's having for everybody. Me personally, I'm an empty nester recently. I've always been in my head. I'm a very busy person and I've been living in my head. I, like a lot of women, had body dysmorphia. I never thought I was pretty. I never thought I was enough. Donald Trump is like the biggest asshole in the whole wide world. And the fact that men or women could follow him and love him is mind-blowing to me. I'm twice divorced. I've always struggled with that female problem of, oh, you're too much, you're not enough, you're this, you're that. And it was really hard to figure out how to just be me. And that was enough. 2-time breast cancer survivor. And we were all trapped behind our computers for so long that I don't like wearing high heels anymore. I wore socks for so long. My beautiful shoes are no longer comfortable. So as I watch your gorgeous shoes, I'm like, maybe I should try harder to do that. And I'm always looking to figure out, what does it take for us to rebalance all humans being treasured and valuable and equal? So I'm going to try to tell you 7 stories that have happened over the last 7 years. So I was 44 when I came to the Netherlands and worked with a team on a circular economy business. I had some things happen about reshaping my dream horizon. A lot of you talked about dreams the last couple of days. That was really exciting to me. I'm going to tell you about cancer and the fact that's had on my life, what it took to ask for help. How many of you are comfortable asking for help? I mean, hopefully lots, but it's not easy for a lot of women. Facing may the force be with you, facing my deepest fear, and a new kind of love. So if this feels like Jeopardy, I was ready to get squeezed in time where you could choose your own adventure. We could pick 3 of these things, but I think we have time for me to tell you 7 stories. So first of all, about Niaga. I've had a great career, but I will tell you that this is the most fun I've ever had, and it's probably one of the hardest challenges that we were undertaking. So I got a call to see if I would come to the Netherlands and lead an innovation venture that was in crisis inside of a really big chemical company. It was a joint venture. It was failing. And hey, could you come help? And I like chaos and I like crazy and I like to turn broken things around. So I came in and they had 100 initiatives. They had a tiny team. They really wanted this to happen, but too much work for too small people and no alignment at all. Plus, they'd hired a coach for a lot of money who took them through the process of all getting fair and honest with each other, and then nothing changed. And so in the first 30 days when I was interacting with everybody, more than half of the team, men and women, were crying mad. They really had the purpose in their hearts that they wanted to be here, but it was not fun at all. It was not working. And so at the beginning, we did 2 things. We had started working on the trust issue, and we worked on picking 3 things, because we can only do 100 by doing 3 things first and then creating capacity for more and more and more. And it took a big leap of faith on all of their parts to take that journey with me. But the very first thing I said to them, which is what I've said to teams for the last 20 years, is, as a leader, to the best of my ability, things will happen with you and not to you. Because I've hated when people make decisions when I'm not at the table. I hate it when you have to just delegate and execute. I really like when I'm part of the conversation. I like when I know that I got to influence something. And I think that's what most humans do. We like to be part of the process. So I invited most of these people were here the entire time. But I brought them to a meeting, and they'd never been invited to a meeting like that. These are chemists and engineers. They're stuck in labs, and they've been happily working away as lab technicians and stuff for 10 years, happy. They didn't even know anything but work packages. This is your work package, this is what you do, go do it, be happy, take your holidays. And I brought them into a meeting, and they're like, why am I here? Nobody's ever asked for me to have an opinion before. Like, why do you want to talk to me? And I said, because I believe that you know something that we all could benefit from, and this is going to happen with you and not to you. So we did it. We were trying to go from a linear economy to a circular economy. So I would hate to share all the statistics about how much stuff goes into the trash, but we were working on 3 different industries: carpets, mattresses, and furniture. And in carpets alone, 5.5 billion pounds of carpet, or 2 billion kilos, goes into landfill and incineration every single year. And 35 million mattresses in Europe alone go into landfill and incineration every year. And 100 billion euros is spent on carpets, mattresses, and the laminated panels inside of cheap furniture, with more than 97% of it ending up as waste. These are precious raw materials that are not being recovered. And you might hear in an analysis, if you're at all familiar with life cycle analysis, that waste energy gets points in a life cycle analysis where we burn stuff for energy. But these are raw materials that become ashes. You can't make anything else after it's been burned. And so we had these people who are saying, we're going to use chemistry and engineering to change the materials people are using, prove it's recyclable, and set up systems to get it all back. But this is not in a world that wants to change or is ready for this, or it's a big thing, because you don't have to change one thing, you have to change 6 or 7 or 10. So we were here to design out waste, and we did successfully prove in those 6 years that you can make carpet recyclable and rugs, you can make mattresses recyclable and healthier, you can change the way that you make panels so that we can mechanically and chemically recycle all of it and keep 100% of those materials in circulation again and again. So the word Niaga is actually the word again spelled backward, because we want to keep things again and again.
So
And-
practically, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
So practically, they create new materials, these people.
So if you take a typical carpet as an example, today, all around the world, carpet is made by putting a lot of different materials together for performance. So nylon, latex, like they'll have, and then chemicals for stain master and soil protection and things. And then they put a backing on the back to give it structure.
Okay.
And they're made of 12, 15 different materials, and there can be as many as 44 toxic ingredients in a carpet as well. But we were able to show people how to change the process technology, to use a different machine to make carpet so that we could use polyester only. And then we made a polyester adhesive and a polyester backing. And when it became one material, we could recycle that simpler material while it was still beautiful and functional and great. And we changed mattresses. Mattresses today are largely made out of polyurethane, which is foamy. Everybody gets these, you get the mattresses these days in a box, and then you cut the plastic, goes.
Yeah.
And it's a really comfortable mattress, but it's flammable. So they have to put flame retardants on the ticking that goes on the outside. And there's just so many materials, but not recyclable. Very comfortable mattress. It's a high performance mattress, but it's got one life. And when we switched it to polyester material, so we sold materials, we sold processes, we sold intellectual property to manufacturers to switch from what they were doing today to switch to the circular versions. But we also had cultural anthropologists and other people on our team that could show the path to get it back, so it really was recyclable, not theoretically recyclable.
Is it better if the carpet is like done and not?
We do work with a wool manufacturer to make the face fibers out of wool, very beautiful and natural products. And then it's put with the polyester adhesive and the polyester backing. And then this particular adhesive has this unclick functionality. So when you heat it or apply a microwave, you can separate the wool from the back and recycle both. So it's pretty cool. And I could give a whole presentation on the materials and that, but what I really wanted to share with you was how we worked, because I think it was a compliment to a lot of yesterday's conversation. 6 or 8 months into our time together as a team, we picked our 3 priorities. We had made a commitment after all the sadness and stuff to a drama-free Niaga. We decided what our values were going to be and said, could you sign this paper? There was a poster that we made that said partnership for a drama-free Niaga. And then we had what that meant, like what the behaviors were that were drama free. And everyone had to sign it. But some people weren't ready to sign it because they didn't have the trust that anything was really going to change after that first experience with the coach. So they waited. After many months, everybody finally signed it. But getting rid of that drama, I wanted to share my favorite tool for eliminating drama, which is, to me, organizational cancer. And that is recognizing how humans behave. So we used the word bully earlier today. In life, there's usually a dreaded drama triangle. And I think if you're honest, you've been all three of these at some point in time. There's a perpetrator, a bully, then there's a victim, and then there's a rescuer. And the way this conversation usually goes is, Kelly was a bitch. And then this person goes, yeah, she is. And then Kelly is kind of either like left out of this conversation, but this festers, and then this doesn't work. And this, you've been a part of these conversations, right? And so we've all been a part of this dynamic and live in it in many different ways. And so there's this really great book by a guy named Daniel Emerald called The Empowerment Dynamic. And it's just a really short story about two people that meet at a beach, and one's in crisis and one's the coach. And he basically acknowledges these roles, but then he challenges a reframe to shift to the same people, or shifting a little bit to everybody can be a creator. We don't have to be victims anymore. You get to be a creator. And the person who was formerly the bully gets reframed to a challenger. People are challenging us all the time. And then this person who used to be the rescuer, that was an empathetic person, just wanted to make you feel better and hold you, well, they get to be the coach instead, to help you create the outcome you really want. And when you get used to applying this dynamic, you can flip any crappy situation into something that restores trust, repairs trust, rebuilds situations, and fixes teams. Because we can get diversity right. We can put people in a room that are diverse, but that's not the magic. The magic is the inclusion. The magic is when the diverse people get to be themselves. And if you get to be himself, you come with all those stories and stuff we were talking about earlier. And the hard part is hearing each other, understanding each other, because you're gonna piss each other off if you're high performers. And so the question is, if you can start coaching to this empowerment dynamic, you're still gonna have a bad day, right? You're still gonna have a bad day. And let's just say that I'm mad at you. And so I go to pet her and I say, oh, wait a minute, she's driving me nuts. And then, so I'm recognizing that I'm being challenged. But now the coach doesn't say, yeah, right. They say, oh man, I'm really sorry to hear that you're struggling. What do you really want? How can I help you create something better for yourself and to repair that relationship with them? And you start turning like every little crisis into empowering people to create. You don't have to stop having problems. You have to approach them differently. And so everybody who's ever worked in Niaga, any employee, any contractor, any coach, anybody has to read that book. It's very important. It's easy reading. But I just think that dynamic, as I was able to coach the team to handle problems with creation, it really helps all of us. But 6 months in, I put up a picture of a traditional org chart, and we had all been working pretty openly, and everyone was involved in lots of conversations. And I showed them the org chart I had to create for corporate. And they said, oh, that doesn't really feel like us. Maybe we could create a structure where we had a circular team that fed our circular ambitions. And I said, well, what would that look like? And then the universe would have it that 2 weeks later, I was in Rome at the Women in Networking Conference, and a woman who wrote a book called Holacracy, which is she wrote about Aquacy, but Holacracy, so it's actually all these self-directed work models, was presenting at this conference exactly when I needed her help. And so I got to learn from her. And then when I got back to work, I said, hey, I'm willing to help set up a new structure, but I need you guys to choose to be on a design team or an implementation team. So 6 people were like, me, and we read the books and we watched the videos and we called people up and we created this structure. And then we put it in front of the team to challenge it and edit it and change the values. And we implemented it. And so the very most important thing we did was we took some research about the difference between traditional hierarchical organizations and the frustration in them by the whole organization, and then kind of the values that were in action in the most empowered organizations. And we used that list to say, well, who do we want to be? And we picked all these values, but the ones that are different to me from the jobs I had in the past were radical transparency. That means that you talk to everybody when you're making changes, even uncomfortable stuff. Not 3-4 managers go in a room and decide something and spring it on everybody else. And that was very uncomfortable for people who'd never been in those conversations before. It was a lot of chaos, but it was worth it. And then zero subordination. Nobody had a boss. So nobody had people management responsibility anymore. We had teams, and you were responsible to a team. And that ended up being really hard for some folks because they thought, how am I going to get promoted if I don't have people management on my resume? Or, you know, I've been managing people for 30 years. I have to manage people as part of, you know, I have to be bigger, I have to be more. And I was like, well, we're going to challenge that, including me. Like, I'm never going to pull rank on you. I'm not going to make decisions over you. Like, let's give this a try. And then fierce inclusion. We really went after equality and sort of say, we're working on that empowerment dynamic, pulling people into meetings. But it also meant that when we got together for a workshop like this as a team every quarter, we were noticing that the extroverts had like 6 people out of 30 were taking up 90% of the space. So we started implementing things like having response cards on the table where people had to write down their feelings or their input or their ideas or their feedback to level the playing field so the introverts and the extroverts got to play. And we also coached the people that were talking all the time that you're 2% of the population here. Take 2% of the space, maybe 3, not 10, not 20, you know, and that was really good over time. And then we talked a lot about failure modes, failing. How do you make it okay to fail? This is disruptive innovation. More goes wrong than goes right in the beginning when you're trying to build new things and trying to implement a circular economy after something's been done the same way for so long. And so we learned about a technique from a master class at Stanford where we did this little exercise with each other where we had to count in pretty predictable patterns, like count by 2s, count by prime numbers. And then when people messed up, you would just watch them shrink. You just watch people get smaller when they failed, because that's what we do. And we stopped and said, anytime you experience a failure, you have to go, ta-da! And you have to own it and share it, because if we have our hands on each other's backs, when we experience something, you don't have to fix it by yourself. You don't get to learn by yourself either. We're going to learn together. We're going to fix things together. And we're going to call out problems really quickly. And that actually ended up getting some steam where we would have pretty big messes and it was never hidden. You know, it became a thing. Ta-da! Ta-da! I had a problem today. But the more that it got safe to share it, the more that it became faster to fix, and we didn't have to learn things 10 times. It really increased our speed a lot just to shout it out. Little fuck ups. I'm sorry, like little things. We just got to roll with it and build that teamwork. So we had 3 business teams that were working on penetrating and improving things in those 3 industries. And the other thing is, this was so new to the world that we use the Bell-Mason innovation framework. So you start out with a concept and then you go to seed, alpha, beta, market commercialization. While things are so fragile and so unproven, you have to convince management that they're making they're taking a risk that has to have an acceptable loss. So we would shape experiments when we were trying to prove things where we would spend a little money to go learn a lot, knowing we might be throwing that money into the toilet. But you had to have the alignment of people that you're taking a big risk and lots of things are going to work out, but go learn as fast as possible with small experiments. And then as those say yes, add more, step on the accelerator, build out the team, give them more resources. But having the discipline to start small and work up to build a venture, we had 6, we killed 3, and those 3 came to life over time.
Very quick question.
Yeah.
Did you have that senior buy-in like for that purpose from the very beginning, or did you have to work for that?
We had to work for that. Yeah, so we had mostly pulled people into the team who had been working for DSM, a very big chemical company. And for example, when we thought that the panel idea was looking promising in the lab, they immediately created a capital expenditure request for 1.5 million euros to build a production line. And we're like, we don't have a customer, we don't have a product. And so I said, no, like, let's ask for 150,000 euros in 6 months and 4 people to go rent used equipment, build a prototype, build some things, go get customers. And they had a partner. After 8 months, we're at Dutch Design Week with 8 MOUs from companies who want to buy stuff from the prototypes. And then we asked for the capital, and then we took the next steps. But, you know, and they learned a lot of things that the 1.5 million they were gonna spend is not the 1.5 million that we got after we played. And it was really, really important. So that's about all I have about Niaga. But if you are ever thinking about self-directed structures or really empowered organizations or getting rid of drama, I will help any of you on that. So now I'm going to shift a little bit to some of the things that I've just learned as a human over in some of my stories. I've loved everything that you guys have said the last couple of days about dreams, and I added Malin's quote from Walt Disney at the bottom there, because the stuff I already had been percolating in my head about dreams were, you have to have a dream to have a dream come true. You can't outperform your own self-image. That's really important to goal setting and stuff. It's also why a lot of communities struggle, because if you're raised with the stories that this is all you can be and this is all the further you can go and this is what you can do, that's what you're going to do. I'm a farm kid from Iowa. There were 12 kids in my class. There was nobody different than me. You know, and it's kind of amazing that you still found your way, right? You still found your way into different opportunities and corners of the world. But I always had big dreams. And yet I'm going to tell you a story about that. I thought I was so aware of these ideas about limiting beliefs and stuff. And then a couple of years ago during COVID, I was divorced. My husband asked me for a divorce during COVID. I didn't know that was coming, but here we are. And my kids were going to college. And so here I am going, what am I going to do with myself? And so I went into a leadership development program called L.A.R.G.E. And they are one of those places where it's 120 days and they, you know, take you down and build you up. But in that process, I was feeling really good about everything. And I think I was really annoying them, because every time I just said, I'm here because in the next 6 months of my life's going to shift and I could literally do anything in the world, anywhere with anyone. And I want to think big about that. So I went into this program because I wanted to dream big. And then they listened to me for a couple of sessions and they said, Kelly, you are evaluating everything in your life on a scale of 1 to 10. And I go, yeah. And they go, and generally you are giving yourself, you know, 6.8, 7.1, 9, 10. Yeah. So generally you're happy. Yep. Generally things are going well. Sure. We have some bad news for you. The scale's 1,000. And I was like, because it's true. I had gotten really cozy in my bubble and in my life where I was content. But I stopped realizing it's still a lot out there. There's still a lot that you could do that was beyond my cozy comfort zone now. And like the stagnation you kind of talked about, you know, it's cozy felt good. But then when somebody sort of said, wait a minute, you're in the middle of this one life, you could do so many other things. Think a little bigger about this. And that was really good because I actually didn't think I was worthy of certain places and certain things and certain circles and certain people. I really thought I didn't deserve to be there and I wasn't capable of doing certain things until they helped me reframe my goals and targets. And so I'm grateful for that because they did kick me in the butt. I was, yeah, well, no, I gotta make sure you get all the stories. So everything's good. I manifested a new boyfriend. I'm living in a new place. I'm on my way. I'm still living in the Netherlands. My kids are doing great. And in December of 2020, I had a clean mammogram, 8 years without cancer, feeling great, couldn't be better. And then I was sitting in a meeting like this, and I had this discomfort in my arm. It was like a little weird, like, not quite right, weird. And I went back to the United States and I said, well, my neighbor was a physician. I'm like, I have this weird thing here, and my hand goes numb sometimes. He's like, well, given your history, you should probably go get a mammogram. So I did, and learned 2 weeks later that there were tumors blocking all the lymph nodes on this side of my body. Some here. I had a tumor in my neck. I had a tumor in my head. I had bone metastases all over my body, close to my heart. And it was awful, really awful. And so the first time I had cancer, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't want my kids to think their mom was gonna die. I didn't want anyone at work to worry about me. So I took a day of vacation to have a lumpectomy, and I did my radiation at night because I didn't want anybody to know. Which means I also didn't ask for help. And my kids, after I was good, after I had radiation and everything and I was cleared, I told people, and they were like, so sad that they've like, oh, I don't feel close to you at all, that you went through that by yourself, But the second time, I had come to know that our bodies are amazing self-healing machines. They're amazing. And I realized, like, I've watched burns on my hand fix themselves. I've watched my body fix itself. And I was like, I can do this again. I've done this once, I can do it again. But I also realized after working with Niaga, the power of radical transparency, that when you're actually open and honest and vulnerable, people want to help you. And so I said, there's no shame in having a disease, but it does make me sad that everybody has compassion for cancer because it's in your family, it's in your friends. Like, everyone is exposed to cancer, but we're not so compassionate about AIDS. We're not so compassionate about obesity. We're not so compassionate about diabetes. We're not so compassionate about other things. And we need to be, because all disease is not necessary and it's not good. And so I just said, no more shame in having disease. I'm grateful for medicine and doctors, the standard of care. But when I sat in my my doctor's office, I was thinking, oh, I'm going to lose my hair. I'm going to get more boobs. They'll cut them out. I'll get new ones. That's going to be interesting. But no, when you have a stage 4 diagnosis and you're palliative, they say, we're not going to do radiation, and we're not going to do chemotherapy, and we're not going to do anything. We're just going to keep you alive as long as we can. And that might be 2 years, might be a little more, but it's in your bones, and it's in, it's in your soft tissues. So let's be realistic about this. And so that was shocking to me, that I just have time. But I realized I take a drug, what was her name yesterday? From Novartis? Yeah, so Kisqali is a drug that wasn't available that I take now. It's an oral chemo that is a very beautiful thing, but it's only been available for 3 years. And so that's my one thing. That's what I get. That in a infusion every quarter to keep my bones healthy. So I'm worried, and it got worse before it got better. So I went after eliminating the dis-ease in my life in a very serious way, because fear, anxiety, shame, worry, all these things that if we just tuck them away and we're tough all the time and we just keep going on the hamster wheel, your body stores it. It stores it for later when you take the time to rest and recuperate. And I'm grateful that Europeans are way better at taking holidays and taking breaks and recovering, but Americans never stop working. They just don't. They're afraid of everything, that they're going to lose their jobs, that they can't afford healthcare, that they can't do anything. And so it is so important to understand the sources of disease in the world and in your life and in your body, and do not tolerate them. So hell is on earth. There is no hell, people. Hell is here. Hell is when we create conditions where other humans are in distress. Whether it's all these things, it's terrible and it's not necessary. This time I did ask for help. And if we become Facebook friends, you can go see how I asked for help. Because with Niaga, I realized we're better together 100% of the time. I am full of love, and there's so much love around me and in my community. I have a tattoo that says so. And asking is the hard part for me. So I asked, I went on Facebook, I have a global community, I told them what's happening, and I asked for their help. And my Lord, did the help come. I mean, seriously, not only so much support and love and hands on the back, but resources, books about radical remission. Who knew so many people survive a stage 4 diagnosis? Who knew that the mind-body connection, people are restoring blindness, they're getting rid of Parkinson's, they're doing crazy things in the quantum field with meditation. I drink celery juice every day. I go through 25 kilos of celery juice every 2 weeks, like 25 kilos of celery. It's a lot of fiber. I learned from other people about mushrooms and turkey tail, and of other people about, and then talk about storytelling. Anita Marjani, at the end of 4 years of cancer, in a coma, dying, organs shutting down in the hospital, has a near-death experience, comes back into her body and restores her health to perfect health. And she had the support from the Hay House to write her book. And what I learned from her, I had been nutso about my diet. I had adopted a plant-based diet, and I stopped drinking alcohol, and I stopped drinking coffee, and I stopped eating sweets, and I'm just getting skinny, and I'm like hungry all the time. And I came to fear food. I came to fear eating something bad that might hurt me. And she did the same thing, but after her near-death experience, when she got the chance to live again, she said, no more fear and anxiety. I know what my body likes. I know what healthy food is, but if I have a chocolate or a coffee, it's joyous. I'm going to enjoy it and have fun with it and get rid of all those toxic feelings about it. And I did the same. I make love to my coffee every day. It's like my favorite part of the day. But it's because other women are telling their stories and helping you to really realize that we don't have to keep living with all this pain. So then I want to tell you about the second opinion, because after I asked my community for help, one of my best friends, we'd lost touch, we weren't friends anymore, but she cared enough about me to get me a second opinion with the very top oncologist at the Cleveland Clinic. It's not my hospital. And I went and I talked to him, and he had gotten all my scans and all my information, and I had a very young doctor at University Hospital, so I just wanted a second opinion. And he affirmed everything she was doing, and he told me what happens after cancer outsmarts that drug and blah, 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 blah. He totally just was great about all this stuff, but he had this sense, and he looked at me and he said, why are you really here? And I just started bawling. I didn't see this coming. I didn't know what was happening. And I just started crying, and he's like, okay, what's going on? And I said, well, I've just always really wanted to live in a modern house. And the global supply chains are all fucked up, and everything's getting really expensive, and I don't feel like I have enough time, and I feel like my kids should get the money I've saved over the years, and I just really feel like I should be doing those things and not making a decision like that. And he's like, whoa. He goes, first of all, you seem to be responding well to treatments. Yeah. You're still here. Yeah. You could live 6 months or 2 years or 5 years or 20 years. But if you're not using your lifetime to chase your dreams, what are you doing with it? And I went, wow, thank you. Like, that was such a gift. And what happened after that was I decided I was going to live for 5 more years. And I said, if I'm going to live for 5 more years, I'm going to move home. My parents are still alive. I'm going to move home, and I'm going to make my estate plan. I'm going to get ready to live 5 years, knowing that the end is not going to be pretty. But I'm going to have a 5-year plan. And then I just wrapped my head around that. I am still here. Other people are dying in a car accident right now. They have no warning. They're just gone. But I have time. I get the chance, even if it's only 5 years. It's going to be the best freaking 5 years anybody has ever lived. And so I made that commitment to myself to go home. And I just made that commitment that I was going to make those changes. And then the universe works in the weirdest ways. I got a little things manifested, and my dream home became available in the town I went to college in Iowa, and I bought it. And I paid cash for it, and I don't have a lot of bills, and I traveled, and when I turned 50, I threw a party for myself, and it was the biggest self-promoting thing you've ever seen. I had fat heads of myself all over the yard. I had the Kellapalooza logo. I had t-shirts and pajamas for everybody. Like, it was really fun, but I'm like, I might not be 60. So we're going to do this. And then I took 50 days to celebrate my 50th birthday, 25 days before and 25 days after. And I'm like, I'm here to live. I'm here to give. But what has been really important, and I think a source of access to everything, is that pause. It's that time to be quiet. It's that time to say, receive your grace and your gifts and your quiet. I wish this was me. It's not. This is usually what I look like, because I like to lay down. I like to do walking meditations. But it's in that peace and quiet that I really am asking myself, I'm still here. I want to leave the world better than I found it. I have to create the space to receive what that looks like. And part of that has led me here to you. You know, this became a part of the journey to say, yes, I want to come and meet some women and talk about life. I also wanted to tell a story about the Force, because in my first marriage, my husband was an atheist and I was Catholic, and he drove me nuts because when we talked about religion, he'd say, I believe in the Force. And he loved Star Wars. And I was like, that's so ridiculous. But now I believe in the Force. I actually don't love religion as much in my current state, but I believe in this power that created all of us, independent of however you choose to practice your faith. We all are the same. We're these beautiful human vessels, bodies that will come and go with this life force. I can't explain it. It's this life force that is, all we have to do is breathe and eat and sleep, and we can be 100 most of the time. Like, it's crazy that we have this life force, this spirit that powers us. And I've come to know through the 4 agreements and the 5th agreement in particular, best book I've ever read, about these stories and programs we've been talking about that are in our subconscious that shape how we experience the world and how we judge ourselves, and how we're programmed by our countries, our churches, our schools, our parents, our grandparents, our ancestors, and stories just roll and roll and roll until they don't. And when you reclaim your consciousness about who you are and how you want to live, everything becomes possible. It's restoring my health, I believe. So I believe all people are human and divine. It's sad that humans hurt humans. That's not the divine in anyone that's hurting people. It's the human and people that are hurting humans. But we all have it. Everybody trapped in a jail cell right now, and everybody who's hurt someone else or grabbed a gun or fought a war, they are divine, just like me and you. They just are full of stories that makes it okay until it doesn't. And we can rewrite these scripts for ourselves. So the last story I think I want to tell you is another great experience I had in a room like this, where we had a coach who asked us to take an onion, and we sat for like a good 45 minutes peeling back the onion, looking for our greatest fear. And we had to write it with a Sharpie on a piece of paper. So I wrote this. This is like a year and a half ago. And then we had to go out in the hallway in complete silence and wander around 60 women and find the women who had the same fear as us. And there were 8 other women, CEOs, CFOs, we were all at this private equity conference, just women. And I found the other people who said, my life, I'm worried that my life didn't matter. And I looked at them, I'm like, what the hell? You're amazing, you're beautiful, you're great, I admire you. You've had such a big impact on my life, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking at them, all of them, and I'm like, you're amazing. But I realized I don't look at myself in the mirror and go, look at you. You're beautiful. You're amazing. You're incredible. I didn't see myself that way at all. And then I realized, why? Why can't we look at ourselves and see our magic and see our power and see our kindness and see our care, love ourselves? It's shocking to me that I didn't realize I didn't love myself until I was 49 years old, because I was busy loving everybody else. But I really didn't create the space or the time to see me, let alone choose me. And the minute that I decided I was only going to spend the rest of my life doing things I loved with people I loved, everything got like brighter. And then I had to make a choice. Do I keep coming to the Netherlands to work when my family and my kids are there on my 5-year plan? I've accepted I'm going to die. Well, yes, because I get to do things I love with people I love, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. But it's funny when I tell the story, people go, are you trying to get me to tell you about all the stories about all the things that you've done for me? And I'm like, no, I'm just telling you the truth. That imposter syndrome sort of says, I feel like I don't belong here. I have to fake it till I make it. You've always been enough. You are enough. And I wish I could take this away from everybody. I just know it's way too rampant among women. So, what is love? I've heard things in my life. Love hurts. Love ends. Love is this, love is that. No, love is none of those things. Like, love hurts. No, love doesn't hurt. Hurt hurts. Love is cruel. No, love isn't cruel. Cruelty is cruel. And I really think that if we can shift our relationship with love, that it is the most powerful and incredible force in the universe, in the world. And loving yourself gives you the capacity to love others. Connecting with people in loving and kind ways is very, very, what word am I looking for? Contagious. You like being around people that are kind and compassionate and loving and caring and smart and brilliant and helpful and impactful. And it took a lot for me to stop believing love ends and that love is temporary and that you have to earn it. Not true. You get to be loved just because you're here, but you don't get the love unless you give it. And it's a really cool thing when you reconsider love. And if you want to make a Dutch person uncomfortable, tell them you love them, because they don't use that word in that way. Love it's intimate, it's romantic. I told him I loved him all the time. Like, you're so American. But I was like, no, I mean it. I see you. I love you. I care about you. I really care about you deeply. And that's honest. I love you. I see your beauty. I'm proud to be here with you. I would help you if you need something. But like, we get to be that way. And I just really would love to see a lot more love in the world. And the last story I'll tell is about manifesting. The very best thing that can come out of learning to meditate and following up on the practices of getting quiet and accessing just the things that you learn when you're super duper quiet is there's all kinds of forces around you that want it to be good. It's supposed to be good. The Book of Mary is one of my favorite things that's happened to me recently, and she doesn't say God, she says good. Like we're good. We're from good. It's supposed to be good. Life's supposed to be good. Everything's supposed to be good. We're supposed to be good. And the more that you start believing it can be good and projecting the energy of expecting it to be good, the more it comes. And the sign that I get from the universe that I'm on the right track is rubber bands on the ground. And you and I both know they're mostly from mailmen, but they're always in my path. And I have collected thousands of rubber bands over the last few years because it's my reminder from the universe to be resilient, to be stretchy, to trust that when you get stretched, you'll come back to shape. It's going to be okay. And so if you ever want to talk about manifesting or you want to talk about these kind of tools and tricks, I would love to do that with you. So this is my license plate in Iowa. It says be large because I am, want to be, and we have one precious life. Our lives are our stories to shape, so be large with me, please. That's it. Aw.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any discussion? Yeah. Oh.
And it just kind of puts things in context. So we hear the word dream, big, be ambitious, work hard. And if we're true to ourselves, it's exhausting. You know, it's actually like, I think sometimes I think I'm almost going philosophical because I told them like, what are you chasing? You know? And looking at it from the context of your experience where joy, happiness, what's your view of today's world where it's a very work-driven culture, excellence-driven culture, give, because all these things you're doing, you're giving yourself. We're achieving impact, but we're giving ourselves. Just giving your experiences and just how short you have, or how long I believe you still have left, but you had to go this experience of almost facing the reality of death. How do you view all this hard work that we do?
I think you have to figure out why you're doing it, and what is it giving you back? Because I've loved my career.
Yeah.
I've loved it. I love finance. I love leading teams. I love people. I love fixing businesses. I love consulting and private equity firms. But I don't work with all of them. I work with the ones that are aligned with my values, that are trying to help communities and fix distressed businesses. I don't want the ones just going to make a lot of money and hurt people. I was given the gifts that I've been given, and I use them in a way that gives me great pleasure. And I get paid too, but I don't regret a day of it. It's a pleasure to be in business and to use capitalism and commerce to leave the world better. Which is also why I don't want to work in companies that are taking more than they're giving. I want to work on things that fix things. But we get to choose that, we get to choose to work in places where we're using our energy to make it better. And I think you do with creating economies that work locally. That's fantastic. But everybody gets to ask those questions of themselves. And I honestly feel like it's a gift. It's a gift to me. It was probably other ways we could have had this learning, but by facing the reality that we die. Sorry, this is a shocker, but we're all going to die. Our bodies will stop someday. Our spirits won't, but our bodies do. And so while you're still here, if you embrace that there's an end, what do you do with it? Because it's supposed to be good. It's supposed to be good, and it can be good. And if it's not good, ask for coaches and help and support to make it good. It's supposed to be good. And now it is good for me. It is good. And I have a lot of skills. I know I'm creating the space to receive. What am I supposed to do? And I wanted your feedback even after my talk, because should I write a book and try to do some speaking? Should I do this? I don't know, because I don't know what you need from me, what the world needs from me. But I know that I'm sick of the fear and anxiety and the shame and the shit. I'm sick of it in everybody, because that's why people do the things they do that hurt others. Hurt people. It's a cycle that just keeps repeating. I mean, Palestine, thousands of years of this conflict. What's it about? It's about people thinking they're different. They're not. You're a soul and a body having one life. Stop fighting. But how do we create the forums to say, could we pause for a second and challenge that story? Why are we hurting each other? Why do we pick up guns? Why do we have laws that let people hurt each other? In the United States, there are entire communities where people are living in tents, and the world's just watching it happen, that people are in all this distress, mental illness, drug issues. But in Amsterdam, where I was living, every single homeless person has a bed. And if they're on the streets because they want to be, there are models where it's working. Why can't we learn? Why can't we say they fixed it, copy, paste? Why do we have to think, oh, socialism, capitalism? How about if we pick the stuff that is serving humans and communities and do it?
Agendas, different agendas.
But
And self-interest.
Yeah.
I know, but that self-interest
Yes, toxic.
is only there until you pause. Whose self-interest is about hurting someone else? Who?
I don't understand this world. For the last few years, I started to realize that many times I don't understand this world. Because I don't see I don't see how, well, I don't know. I don't see how people can be not empathetic to the pain of others.
Go ahead.
And I think for me, your talk, thank you very much for being very vulnerable and sharing. I'm a nurse, that's what I did, that's my first career. So what you're walking through, I've been the caregiver on the other side. And what's resonated from your talk is that this is where we sit as women in leadership. We sit with that empathetic heart. And what we perhaps, for me, what I'm taking away from this is that my role moving forward is to be that person that brings that feminine soul, or whichever way you call it, to the environment or to the space that I'm in. Even if I'm 1 out of 10, I'm the person that's going to bring the change, because, like you say, the things that resonate with success have got impacts on our mental health, on our bodies, etc. And unfortunately, those sort of things then manifest themselves in different, how we're not looking after ourselves. So then changing the narrative as a woman in leadership is creating an environment where people can put themselves first and people can look after themselves, and while still making achievements, while still having really successful careers. That is, for me, what I'm taking away from your talk.
We have a next.
It's like
Big
a
shit.
change, yeah.
But no, yeah, and there will be people around you that have cancer, and I will help them, call me, even if it's just anything that can give them hope to realize you're the CEO of your body. Like, yes, thank you for all the medical care, but people get a diagnosis along with a prognosis. The prognosis is averages. There's a lot of people that reverse these diseases. I'm doing it. But you could, if you believe that your doctor's God and he tells you you're going to live 6 months, the probability of a lot of people believing that is so high.
Yeah.
But it's not always true.
Yeah.
And the people that gave me hope make me want to give other people hope, because
Yeah.
you can do so many things with these amazing bodies.
But always starts in our
It's
minds.
in the head, yeah.
But Kelly, after all you've been through, I was wondering if you can go back, let's say 30 years ago or 20 years ago, what would you do differently? Apart from telling everyone that you have the diagnosis the first time.
Well, I think that there's just some things that I can't change about my family. About
Yeah, sure. But
it's like, if I had someone around me when I was 20 that just told me everything was going to be okay, that I was good enough, that I was loved, that I didn't have to perform, I didn't have to please everybody to be loved. I could just be loved.
you're enough.
I mean, I feel like I performed for love because that's the only love I knew. It was easy for me to give everything because that's when I got kudos and recognition and rewards that I didn't get in other places. But you should just have it. Kids should just be loved. Because you don't, I'm sorry, women who think they're unattractive were not told they were pretty when they were kids. Like, we're all beautiful. But you couldn't convince me of that. And so what choices did that lead to in relationships and things when I didn't feel worthy? Awful. So I would like to take that away from all kids, all teenagers, especially girls, because I think that it just shouldn't be so freaking hard.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's set up the panel. I know somebody have to go.
But you know, I really,
You too.
I don't really feel comfortable to.
Oh, okay.
Moderate the panel after this, it doesn't feel.
It must be
Like,
exclusive,
natural.
as if one
I
is,
This was so, like.
yeah, it was very.
Do you guys want to stop here?
For me, it couldn't be that.
A chat.
We can just sit around the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feels more
No,
authentic.
what I would feel good about, because I think that a lot of the comments that I made are such parallel to all the comments that were made over the last day and a half. We've all done such similar things. What I would love to see is if we could say, based on everything we learned from each other over the last few days, what's gonna be different tomorrow? You know, what's gonna be different tomorrow? As we bring ourselves back into the world after this immersion together, like, what's gonna be different? Do you have any thoughts on what's gonna be different?
About asking for help, sometimes there's some,